I told you can't trust these niggas. Now Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
We have an update now on Dwayne Keefe Davis. He's charged in the murder of Tupac Shakur. Davis was in court again this morning after a fight with another inmate. Fox 5's Mike Allen walks us through what happened.
Puffy's a sucker, man.
So during a December 2008 interview with investigators, that is when Davis allegedly started to spill the beans about his one-time friend, Sean Combs, who he refers to as Puffy. He claims Sean Puffy Combs solicited Mr. Davis to kill Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur for $1 million. Eric Zip Martin, an associate of Puffy Combs, provided Mr. Davis with a gun to exact revenge on Tupac Shakur for the beating Mr. Anderson received. Now, Davis reportedly told the investigators that even though the job had been partially completed and Shakur was killed, neither he nor Anderson ever got paid. He later revealed that he believes Combs had paid the go-between Zip Martin, who he claims kept the money for himself. And he said much of the same thing in a 2009 interview a year later, because according to the motion to dismiss, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, as far back as 2009, was in possession of the same set of facts that the Clark County District Attorney is now alleging makes Mr. Davis responsible for the murder of Tupac Shakur. The Clark County District Attorney's Office has offered no reason as to why it waited another 14 years to prosecute a case against Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis has been irreversibly prejudiced by this unnecessary delay in prosecution of this case, and Mr. Davis's constitutional rights have been violated in an extraordinary manner never before witnessed in the annals of the American criminal justice system. The three LAPD and FBI agents were part of a task force to solve the shooting of rapper Notorious B.I.G., also known as Biggie Smalls, legal name Christopher Wallace. The task force, through a sophisticated criminal investigation, obtained sufficient evidence that would prove Mr. Davis was the leader of the Southside Crips and his gang was responsible for over 360 kilos of cocaine and PCP. Mr. Davis provided 3 interviews to obtain immunity from prosecution. The final interview were solely questions regarding the Tupac Shakur shooting, which Mr. Davis was also provided immunity from prosecution.
50 Cent, Eminem, Keefe D, and even Snoop Dogg have all said that Diddy wanted to get rid of Tupac and Death Row Records. The way the story goes is that at the time, there was a lot of rivalry between the East Coast and West Coast. Diddy was running things with Bad Boy on the East Coast, and Tupac and Suge on the West with Death Row. On the 7th of September, Tupac and Suge were coming out of the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas when they ran into Keefe D's nephew, Orlando Anderson. A fight erupted that ended in Tupac beating Orlando. This is where Keefe D stepped in and allegedly, as revenge for beating Orlando, had Tupac killed. Keefe D denies this version of the events and says that it was actually Diddy who asked him to get rid of Tupac.
In an interview with the FBI in 1999, Davis apparently said something completely different. According to the FBI report, which was included in the motion to dismiss, Anderson was not involved in the shooting death of Tupac Shakur, and neither Davis nor his group killed Shakur or Christopher Wallace, aka Notorious B.I.G. Davis does not know who killed the 2 rap stars. He believes that either individuals from New York associated with Puffy Combs or individuals associated with Death Row Records could have killed Shakur, and that individuals associated with Death Row Records killed Wallace. Okay, so again, changing stories. And by the way, Davis goes on to say that he was introduced to Combs in the early 90s by a man named Eric Zip Martin. This is another alleged drug dealer. And this is where we get into it. So the report reads, in or around 1992, Martin introduced Davis to Sean Puffy Combs. Davis recalls the introduction occurring at the Paradise nightclub on Santa Monica Boulevard. After speaking with Combs, Davis agreed to allow Combs to use his 1964 Chevy in a music video. The video featured the artist Usher. After the vehicle was damaged in the production of the video, Combs paid $2,500 to have it repaired. And by the way, according to Davis, Combs was scared of Suge Knight. And this was a man who had a reputation for being, sometimes violent and extreme. And that moves us now to this DEA report. So there was a DEA report from a 2008 task force meeting with Davis that was also included as an exhibit in the motion. And in it, Davis talks about the murder of a man named Jai Robles. This is Knight's bodyguard. He was killed in Atlanta in 1995. And according to Davis, he'd heard a rumor that an associate of Combs had killed Robles. The report says Combs requested to speak to Davis and asked Davis if he thought it was safe for Combs to come to Los Angeles for a concert. Combs expressed his concerns about Knight and possible retaliation related to the Robles murder. Davis advised Combs that he would provide 40 or 50 tickets to the concert. Davis could provide an entourage. Combs agreed, and Davis and his crew in fact attended the concert in support of Combs. Davis recalls the concert taking place in Anaheim, California. It was at this event that Combs began to solicit Davis to kill Knight and Shakur. Combs asserted something to the effect of, "I'll give anything for those dudes' heads." Quote, at a later date, Dwayne Davis, Eric Martin, Corey Edwards, Sean Combs, and others met at Greenblatt's restaurant in Hollywood. While at the restaurant, Combs summoned Davis into the downstairs area. Combs again told Davis that he needed to get rid of Knight and Shakur. Combs offered Davis $1 million to handle the problem. Davis remembers Combs being very afraid of Knight. So after the car that Knight and Shakur were in was hit by a hail of bullets back in 1996, Davis says that Combs wanted to know if that was the result of him allegedly putting out a hit on Shakur. The task force report states, while at the restaurant, Martin told Davis that Combs had called Martin and asked, "Was that us?" Davis asked Martin when he would receive compensation for the shooting. Martin told Davis he would get the money when he returns to New York. Additionally, while at the restaurant, Combs called Martin again. Martin then handed the phone to Davis. Combs again inquired, "Was that us?" LAPD officer had recorded statements that Davis made in 2008. The state included a transcript of that interview in its filing, and in the transcript, WH refers to Wayne Higgins. This is Davis's lawyer during the interview. Q refers to the questions, and the A's are Davis's answers. Okay, so it says, WH, okay, now go on and ask whatever you want. Q, Puffy Combs. A, yeah. Q, does he play a role in this thing? WH, answer the question directly. Tell him what you think. A, did he play a role in this? WH, don't hesitate, just tell him. Question, yes. Answer, yeah, I think he did. And later in the interview, Davis said, yeah, I feel, I wish it would never ever, I wish I never met Puff Daddy, period, I swear to God. Question, yeah? Answer, he messed up my life, man. I was rich up and under the radar, all that, man. Question, that's all gone? Answer, it's all gone.
The walls are closing in on Sean Diddy Combs, and this time, there may be no way out. Keefe D., the man at the center of the Tupac Shakur murder case, has just been attacked in prison, days after publicly exposing Diddy's alleged role in the hit. The timing is suspicious, and fans are already speculating that the hip-hop mogul might have orchestrated the attack to silence him. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. As court documents surface, past confessions resurface, and even Tupac's family launches an investigation, the question on everyone's mind is clear. Did Diddy order Tupac's murder? And if so, will he finally be brought to justice? Keefe D. has never been shy about his role in the events of September 7, 1996. But his latest allegations have sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world. According to Keefe, Diddy personally offered him $1 million to take out Tupac and Suge Knight. The deal was allegedly brokered through Eric Von Zip Martin, a well-known figure with deep ties in both the music industry and the streets. This wasn't just a random act of violence. Keefe claims it was a carefully planned assassination that Diddy wanted executed swiftly. For years, Keefe D. enjoyed immunity, having reportedly cooperated with law enforcement in exchange for a free pass. But now, that immunity is gone, and he's facing murder charges. Was this a desperate attempt to clear his name? Or is he finally telling the truth about Diddy's involvement? If the police have known about this for years, why are they only acting now? Back in 2009, law enforcement already had the same evidence they're using to prosecute Keefe D. today. Yet, for over a decade, nothing happened. Could it be that Diddy's industry power and connections kept this case buried? Now, as the pressure mounts, Tupac's family has hired a private investigator to get to the bottom of these claims. The fact that a family, after 27 years, is still searching for justice speaks volumes. And they're not the only ones who believe something bigger is at play. 50 Cent, Eminem, and Snoop Dogg have all publicly suggested that Diddy had a hand in Tupac's murder. Diddy is no stranger to controversy, but this time, he's drowning in it. Aside from Keefe D's bombshell allegations, he's now facing multiple lawsuits, including shocking accusations of rape, sex trafficking, and abuse. Witnesses are coming forward, and the evidence is piling up. But the pressure might be getting to him. Reports from MDC prison claim that Diddy is on suicide watch, struggling to handle his new reality. A man who once ruled the music industry is now allegedly seeing a therapist multiple times a day behind bars. And it's not just the isolation. Diddy is reportedly a high-profile target, and prison insiders warn that his life is in serious danger. And then there's Suge Knight, Tupac's former mentor and Death Row Records co-founder. He's been locked up for years now, but that doesn't mean he's staying silent. Suge has repeatedly hinted that Diddy played a role in Tupac's death, and now, sources claim he's ready to talk. Knight has always had a reputation for knowing where the bodies are buried, and if he truly decides to cooperate, Diddy's nightmare could get even worse. According to insiders, Suge is aware of details about the East Coast versus West Coast feud that never made it to the public. He's hinted that Diddy wasn't just scared of Tupac, he was scared of what Tupac knew.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. We are following new developments in the case of the hip-hop mogul who is facing RICO charges in New York, Sean P. Diddy Combs. Court TV has just confirmed that the family of Tupac Shakur is investigating a potential link between the murder of Tupac and Sean Diddy Combs. This coming from attorney Alex Spiro, who represents Tupac's family. Now, this investigation had been previously reported by unnamed sources, but earlier today, Spiro confirmed to our Court TV team that he and a team of investigators has been hired.
Sean Combs allegedly had business dealings with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who will go on trial next March for the murder of Tupac. This was back in 1996. Some have speculated that Diddy ordered Tupac's death. That, of course, is just a theory at this point, and we are monitoring the developments in both the Tupac murder trial and the federal indictment of Sean Diddy Combs. So a lot of information to come on that one.
In the case that continues to roll on, let's bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Jafer just to talk about this new news of an investigative team that is been hired by Tupac's family. We don't have more details about what they found so far and exactly what avenues they are taking to do that, but what does that say to you? What do you think is happening, and how serious is this when someone hires an investigative team in a murder trial that's being handled by authorities, but this is a private entity requesting this?
Julia, I always say, landslides don't happen slowly, right? You'll be standing on the side of a mountain admiring its beauty and glamour, and then 1 second later, you're buried in mud, right? This does not shock me. This does not surprise me. I can promise you this is not the last thing that we find out about people investigating Diddy and what he's done. This is not the first. We know of an attorney now who represents hundreds of families who are suing him for, alleged, freak-offs and sexual misconduct. So what this tells me is that it's just a piling on. Pretty much people knew for decades what we're going to start finding out things that people have speculated on for decades, and they're just going to pile on, because at the end of the day, how's he going to defend himself at this point? He's got a ton of money, he's got a ton of attorneys, but even if you have unlimited money and unlimited resources, if you are sued, by 100 different people, 100 different times, 100 different theories, at the end of the day, you as a professional defendant operating from a jail cell, you cannot overcome that.
Now, it was this documentary that claimed, which we know wasn't true.
Yeah, check this out. We don't talk about things that are nonsense. We don't even entertain nonsense, my brother. So we're not even going to go there, with all due respect, but I appreciate you as a journalist asking. Thank you.
Because listen, 7 years ago, I'd have been like, yo, did you hire somebody to kill Pac? But no, you do it like a journalist.
Yeah, no, I mean, we wouldn't even get into nonsense like that. You know what I'm saying? It's nonsense.
Which we never believed, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
No, and I know that everyone believes that Diddy was involved in both these shootings and had a direct involvement in your brother's death. That is what the streets have said for 27 years. That's why 50 Cent said it. That's why Eminem has said similar stuff. What's interesting to me about your involvement in this is that Diddy actually called you after an LA Times article in 2008 alleging he'd been involved in your brother's death. What did he say that day when he called you?
He was in town. He was in LA at the time. He was on the radio. He asked a local DJ that we all know, Big Boy, to reach out to me because he wanted to speak to me about something. This is a few years after Pac's murder, and you know, we all were familiar with all the rumors and stuff. I said, yeah, let me talk to him. So he called me, and you know, I had my guys with me, Thug Life guys, and we heard what he had to say. He basically said he ain't have nothing to do with my brother's murder. And I told him the truth is still yet to come out, so we're gonna see. Here we are 27, 28 years later. Looks like there's some doubt in that statement. So, thus, you know, along with all the other suspicions that people have, you know, it was time for it to be investigated.
In a statement at the time, Diddy declared, "This story is a lie," the LA Times story. "Neither I nor the late Notorious had any knowledge of any attack on Tupac before, during, or after it happened." Do you think that was an honest statement?
My opinion is that I don't believe it was a 100% honest statement. So again, got to find out what's true and what's false, what's real and what's fake.
Do you think he was lying?
Quite possibly, and it's kind of looking that way.
She says she believed that Diddy had something to do with the murder of Tupac Shakur, and said as much. Allegedly, Diddy warned her that she would pay for saying something like that. So let's just fast forward now to a month later, where she says this guy Shane invited her to come to his apartment. And the lawsuit says, quote, "Plaintiff and defendant Shane then began to watch a movie, and defendant Shane offered her a glass of water, which he retrieved and brought back to the plaintiff." A few minutes later, Ashley Parham says that P. Diddy showed up with an entourage, including his top aide, Christina Coram, an unnamed woman who is not a defendant in the suit, and 3 unnamed men, one of whom she says was Diddy's driver, and Parham says that that driver waited outside throughout the whole of what I'm about to tell you. Parham says that Diddy was antagonistic from the start, and that he put a knife to her face. And now this is where I start reading directly from the complaint. Defendant Shane then partially undressed plaintiff, and then defendant Diddy removed the remainder of plaintiff's clothing, removing the knife from her face, and then retrieved a bottle of liquid from a large fanny pack. Defendant Diddy then squirted a bottle of liquid on plaintiff, which placed her in fear that she was being squirted with a chemical substance like acid. Plaintiff soon realized the substance was an oil/lubricant. Plaintiff was squirted with this liquid substance all over the entirety of her naked body. Defendant KK was then told by defendant Diddy to insert what looked like a syringe from sterile packaging into plaintiff's vagina. Defendant KK did as told, and then told defendant Diddy that she was unable to use the IUD because it had prematurely been released from its packaging, and an IUD is a birth control device. Defendant Diddy, upset by this, took the so-called syringe from defendant KK and tried inserting it into plaintiff's vagina instead. Defendant KK and Diddy began to argue as defendant KK continued to advise defendant Diddy that since the IUD had been prematurely released from its packaging, there was no way they could insert it into plaintiff's vagina effectively. After some time, defendant Diddy heeded the advice of defendant KK and removed the syringe from plaintiff's vagina and handed it to defendant KK. Defendants KK and Jane Doe then exited defendant Shane's residence, leaving the plaintiff alone with defendants Diddy, Shane, and Doe's number 1 and 2. Defendant Diddy then picked up a television remote that was near to plaintiff and violently inserted it into plaintiff's vagina. Defendant Diddy, while violently raping plaintiff with a television remote, told plaintiff that her life was in his hands and that if he wanted, he could, quote, take her, and she would never be seen again. Plaintiff began hysterically crying from the threats by Diddy, along with the pain of being violently, vaginally raped by defendant Diddy with the television remote, as well as the lingering pain from the ordeal with the IUD syringe insertion. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to turn plaintiff on her stomach, seemingly tired of hearing plaintiff's blood-curdling cries. Defendant Shane then grabbed plaintiff by her abdomen and hips and turned plaintiff on her stomach. Defendant Diddy then instructed defendant Shane to put a pillow over her head because he didn't want to see her face or hear her cries, and instructed defendant Shane to anally rape plaintiff. Defendant Shane did as he was told by defendant Diddy and began to anally rape plaintiff. Defendant Diddy then violently raped plaintiff anally after defendant Shane.
After the failed attack on Keefe D's life, there's a good chance that Diddy might be targeted as payback.
So breaking news right now, Larry, I am just getting word. People magazine says it's got a source on the inside that tells them that P. Diddy's on suicide watch tonight. Do your sources confer the same information? Are they saying it was possible?
Hey, real quickly, all that commissary stuff, he's not getting any of that because people in the SHU have an abbreviated list. So he's out of luck. No stake for him. Yeah, he is on suicide watch. This guy thought he would have went home. All of a sudden, he didn't get bond. Remember, the first night that he was there, he was like an overnight guest. When they killed his bond hearing, now they checked him into the system, and reality has hit him. And I understand that he has a shrink coming by his cell to see him several times a day. And now there's talk about putting him in, it's like a bubble. It's like a cell that has like a plexiglass wall in it where they have inmates watching you. That's actually their job, to keep an eye on the inmates that are on suicide watch. Another error that I guess some warden told you this. There are sentenced inmates there. They're called cadre inmates. They don't have to be white collar inmates, but they're doing maintenance on the building. And the problem why there's a lot of violence there, they have housing units. And they're mixing bank robbers, drug dealers, rapists with white collar people. And this is why Diddy, he can't go into a regular housing unit because somebody will take him out for sure. Somebody's gonna get a lot of street credibility out of this. People that are doing substantial time that know they're never getting out, they'll just kill the guy. No questions asked.
You think that they'd suck up to him because he's got a lot of money, and if he ever does get the commissary options, he would be able to help them.
Some people do because
I got to wrap it real quick.
Okay, some people do think that Diddy can help them, but this guy's going to be locked up forever. His case will probably take at least 3 years to litigate. He'll stay at MDC. There's rumors that he wants to go to Essex County Jail in New Jersey because he doesn't like MDC. He's a Marshals inmate. There's no way they're going to transfer him back and forth, I don't know, several times a week, 6 Marshals to do it.
Jersey.
He's out of luck.
Listen, I'm going to have you back. I'm going to have you back. I have so many more questions for you, but we've had a lot of breaking news in this show. So Larry Levine, thanks for that. I appreciate it.